welcome to Urban Tango Nights Talks, Ep.5. Today I'm joined by Urban Tango Nights assistant teacher, Sarah Jane Potts. So different from our usual Urban Tango Nights Talks, or the past three previous episodes, where we discussed people's tango journeys from outside the club. This time we're going to be looking at how somebody who started their tango life journey, however you would like to explain it, within our tango club and has developed over the past 4 years. So welcome, Sarah.
Hi, Chris. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, we should have a choice.
No, not really.
I know this is one of the great things about having your own assistant teachers. They have to do what you say. So let's start then. Your first tango class was on the 19th of September 2016, I believe.
Better memory than me then. I just knew it was summer then.
Yeah, well, I remember it because it was our first. It was our first tango class in the Copper Bar.
Yeah.
So from the history of Urban Tango Nights, from when myself and Alison took over, we started off in a bar called Ice Bar, which is on Wine Street in Swansea, and that was in the February of 2016. We ran that through till June, stopped over the summer, and then when we restarted, we moved to Copper Bar for 8 weeks. So we did lots of advertisement over that summer to really build up the class numbers. And yeah, so the 19th was our first class there. And from what I remember, were quite good numbers. It was enganches we taught.
Yeah, quite a few people down there. Yeah.
Yeah, quite a few. Yeah, quite a few of them have stayed on ever since as well, which is good. So, and that, to be honest, I was quite surprised to actually see you there. So, I first met both me and Sarah have the same bit of dance history, that we both danced in the Swansea University Dance Society, which Sarah is wearing a T-shirt from. It's almost as like this is scripted, isn't it? And you've prepared for this.
It's a comfy T-shirt.
And it was about 2014 I probably met you, because 2015 was my last year in the Dance Society.
Yeah, I've been around since 2011, but just hung in different circles.
Yeah, well, ballroom, a dance, hanging around with hip-hop dancers. Actually, let's start there, shall we, with hip-hop. So that's where I first met you, as you were a hip-hop dancer. Were you dancing hip-hop before you started university?
No, not really. I wasn't really dancing before I started uni. Could never really afford it. Was bullied at school because I apparently looked like an idiot when dancing, and just had a fresh start when I came to uni because people are a little less cruel.
Okay, that's a real downer for the start of this.
Sorry, reality.
Yeah, it's reality too. So, trying to remember if you were into. I was in the Dance Society from I was in the Dance Society. I started in end of 2007, and my first show was, oddly enough, I had a memory on my Facebook, was 12 years ago this week, in 2008. And because I did men's ballet that year, as well as the Latin ballroom, which was just Latin then. So yeah, so I was there in, actually was 2011 was when I rejoined the Dance Society, because that's when I came back to university to do my masters. Was hip hop your only dance style you did that year, or did you do others?
I also did break dancing that year. It was hip hop and break dancing I started out with. Okay,
so again, two heavily linked.
Yeah, pretty much. It's all street genre.
And then in 2014, we were at one of the rehearsals, and I started speaking to you, and you can explain this.
You want me to say?
Yeah, you might as well tell it. How I encouraged you into
during the rehearsals, I was doing one of my hip hop routines, as I think I was in 3 different hip hop routines that year, and Chris came and had a chat with me and actually said, would you consider doing ballroom Latin next year, as we're doing a dance that involves vampires and you have a particularly aggressive style which would be nice for this dance.
Yes, exactly.
Charming.
Actually, I don't think I used the word vampires. It was to a piece
You
called.
didn't mention the vampire waltz bit.
Yeah, I think I mentioned the actual song that I wanted to do it for.
Yeah.
By that time, I was getting pretentious in my choreography, and I was trying to go grandiose because I knew it was going to be my last show anyway. And for the choreographer, I decided to create like a story which was meant to be about temptation and yeah, that sort of general theme, where the followers or the girls in it were meant to be some sort of spirit phantoms, I suppose, which were there to tempt the men and be sort of this sort of persona on stage. So yeah, that was
that was something. Yeah.
it was something. Yeah, it worked out okay.
Yeah.
It looks okay on the DVD anyway, which is all that matters, I suppose. But yeah, so that's when I first met you, and I was really surprised that when come around the October when the university term starts again, you actually came along.
Yeah, I thought, why not? I was curious, and I brought my housemate with me.
Yeah, Gump.
No, that wasn't my housemate.
Oh no, Rob. That was it. Yeah.
Rob with me. Yeah.
Yeah, and he was in the show as well.
Yeah, and he never left Dance Society for the remainder of his duration at the uni.
He had inspiring people to dance even then.
Yeah.
So I suppose this first thing then is obviously ballroom and Latin compared to Argentine tango is far closer than hip hop is to ballroom, I suppose.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, so
dancing versus not.
Yeah, well, yeah, and I suppose I don't know if this is true because my experience of street dancing. Actually, saying that, tango is originally a street dance.
Different sort of street dance, but yeah, it is.
Yeah, well, if you look at the history of street dancing, again, I'm not an expert on the history of street dancing. Not really an expert on Argentine tango either, but close enough. But it developed. Argentine tango developed on the streets of Buenos Aires. It normally belonged to lower class people, and so if you look at certain histories of hip hop, in particular breakdancing, it was again people dancing for I suppose relief, I suppose, from the normal stresses of their actual reality.
Alternative fighting, yeah.
Yeah. So that's one. I don't know if that's actually the true history of breakdancing. That gangs would dance off each other rather than just fight each other. But it's definitely
people still will prefer to show off than punch each other in some situations, which is probably beneficial.
Yeah. So I suppose okay, Argentine tango isn't that far removed from hip hop, but I suppose one of the big differences that we see from the Latin and ballroom is that Latin ballroom is heavily choreographed. There's set moves, there's set ways to do the moves, even though especially when you joined that class, we were teaching it in a way that was more improvised. But how did you actually find the fact that you weren't able to do the improvisation of hip hop compared? It had to be followed. Had to be led and followed.
You probably know fully well. Being led did not come naturally to me. It also didn't come naturally to my lead.
Yeah, true.
So it made for a fun pair.
Yeah, well,
but he was great.
Well, for those who don't know anything about Latin ballroom, the first dances you learn if you follow the prescribed syllabus is you learn waltz in the ballroom side and you learn cha-cha in the Latin side of things. So the first class we teach the Latin first and the ballroom second with a 2-hour slot. So the first dance you had to learn was the cha-cha, which, to say, we were moving away from the sort of prescribed teaching a mini routine and sort of looking into how to improvise it, because we found that leaders in particular, especially at university where you had sort of men sort of 18, 19, 20, out of their comfort zone during the classes, you didn't want to put undue stress on them of them having to remember routines as well as technique and the bit of the leading part of it as well, and also try and work out timing. So we got rid of the routine part of it and just taught them how the moves sort of link together and how you can improvise the changes between them. and let them get on with it. So you did have to be follow. You did have to follow as a follower. But then what I did notice, particularly between you and Gump, who was Sarah's main dance partner for that year, even though I think we did try and get people to swap partners by the second semester.
Really work.
Yeah. Well, by the second semester, we were trying to build. We were building up for the dance show, so you were in sort of partnerships for that time.
We're also a very suitable height combination.
Yes, true.
Everyone else was tall.
Bear in mind, Sarah's about 5 foot tall.
And that extra half an inch.
Yeah, I thought I'd be generous. What we did notice was something in particular, because we weren't doing any of the we weren't running the competition side of things that year in the dance society for the Latin and ballroom. We weren't interested in getting anybody's technique. So what we did find really nice watching you and Gump dance was that you had sort of elements of hip-hop, personal styling. Yeah, it was. I'm assuming it was in hip hop, because there was elements of like bounce and sort of in cha-cha. You have hip movement. You have as well hip movement, but there was also some form of, I don't know if it was sway or shoulder movement or something like that.
It's upper body isolation, but in a more hip hop movement rather than more traditional. I think it just kind of carries through when you do it, because he was and still is an incredible hip hop dancer. So when he dances, it just shows what his roots are.
Yeah, so that was something that we really liked to actually see, and like trying to. And we wouldn't discourage that at that time, because we were getting into that real phase of wanting to develop people's personal style and just get them dancing. And the fact that it was basically a fusion at that point. It was really interesting to watch, and actually quite nice to watch as well, because coming from doing competitions for the past couple of years before that, as I say, there's a way that the judges are looking to mark, and you probably wouldn't have got through the rounds dancing like that, but
I think I'd have gone near him anyway.
Yeah, it was fun to watch, which is good. And then, so I was surprised that time when you came in, sort of this October of 2014, and then obviously 2 years later, 2016. I was quite surprised to see you at the tango class.
Yeah.
So I don't think I coerced you to come into that, did I?
No, you did mention it quite a few times, and I did eventually go, oh, yeah, may as well try and go.
Yeah.
Tried bringing Gump a few times as well beforehand, before he left, but it never really worked.
That's when we moved the class to a Monday night as well, so we were always wondering about
it became available for me to actually go to,
Yeah. So I suppose it's always advising that Swansea is quite a big university town of 2 universities, so we have tens of thousands of students, and we're always wondering how many we're going to attract each year to the classes. Bear in mind at this point, had you started your PhD then? You must have done.
Yeah. Because I met you I started doing ballroom and Latin in my master's year.
Okay.
That was my final actual undergraduate year.
Yeah, so it's always interesting to find out how many students we actually get through. We tend to have more of the mature students, so the ones who are in masters, PhDs, the medical students who join when they're 21, 22, joining the class. So with the tango, obviously we teach fully improvisational things. So how did you find the difference between sort of the ballroom going into the Argentine tango?
I found it a little bit more freeing, because tango allows you to have a little bit more personal expression and a bit more freedom of movement, which I didn't really find I had with ballroom and Latin, where if you don't go exactly where they tell you to, then you screwed up. Whereas this allowed me to have a bit more of my freedom back, so I could start to make choices again and start to feel a little bit more empowered than I did doing the other stuff.
And I suppose it's also another thing with the tango, especially with the Latin and ballroom dances, each dance sort of has a personality associated to it. The Argentine tango, the personality comes from how you're feeling at the time and how you want to interpret it. So it can be sharp, it can be lustful, it can be aggressive, it can be whatever you really want it to be.
Yeah.
While if you wanted to do that in Latin ballroom, you have to go, right, I want to be aggressive, I'm going to go for the ballroom tango. I want to be, sexy and lustful, I'm going to go for rumba or whatever. And so that's one of the differences. How did it compare to sort of like your hip hop then, in that case?
Well, it's completely different posture. It's a bit more elegant. It's quite different in that sense because parts of your body are a bit more rigid and a bit more graceful than you would typically be otherwise. Hip hop enables all of the body to move in a very different and very organic manner, whereas tango has a little bit more structure to it and allows there to be a story being told but in a completely different way. So they're both really fun, but both very, very different.
Yeah. I suppose, how does the this I did do a couple of breakdancing classes when I was in the Dance Society.
I remember.
Got a lot of bruises from that.
No.
And it's one of the really odd, especially when there was different styles of breakdancing classes depending on who was running the classes at the time.
Oh, entirely, yeah.
Yeah, and the one that sort of really resonated to me especially with the breakdancers, for those who were in their own group outside the university as well. The classes there weren't what you would call a class structure from anywhere from like the normal educational point of view. It was more you show up and everybody would help each other, and you sort of just go, like, do something, and then we'll see how it comes out. Which is that true for the rest of hip hop as well, or is that?
No. I think with the B-boys, the ones who came in were phenomenal. I'm not saying the previous guys weren't; they were bloody good as well, but they were from more of a gymnastics background, so they're more used to. You'll do a trick or you'll do some form of performance, and then you'll start to improve upon it, which in those circumstances works really well. When you're in a society of people who may be struggling or may not even have the confidence to try the first thing, sometimes that doesn't work, which is why normally in hip hop you can have that freedom of having a freestyle session, but we just call it a freestyle session. Everyone's going to come in, you're going to do your bit, and you're going to kind of bounce off of each other. But that's a freestyle session. It's not a class. It never will be a class. A class normally has at least a theme.
Okay.
So you can build upon that. No, most of the classes I did in hip hop were choreoed, or they would be on a particular technique. So you'd either drill a technique, or you drill the choreo, or you do one then the other. Full freestyle is normally something you do just when you're coming together, when you just want to chill and have a bit of fun.
Okay.
You don't tend to learn as much of freestyle unless you're of a particular mindset and you're very confident, but it's just up to the individual.
Okay. So also then, throughout your dance, throughout the dance society, you were then starting to go into other dances. So you were in Bollywood as well. Was it Polynesian? Was that one year?
I sadly never got to do that one because I could never make it to those classes. No, I did do Bollywood a couple of years. Belly dancing I did do as well. I can't remember the rest.
Yeah.
I dabbled in a few of the others, but I didn't really like modern and stuff. But I never committed to them when it came to the show. I didn't really feel comfortable being in a leotard. I was all right with your routine because at least we had a skirt on below.
Yeah, true. To be bought it was black leotard.
Little white skirt.
Yeah, that was it. Yeah, and then there was sort of weird sort of chiffon piece of material from the arm.
Oh, it went down the arm. Yeah.
Yeah. To ask us like sort of the wisps of the sprites or whatever they are. Mm. And then also since you left the Dance Society, you've moved into other dance styles as well. So hoop.
They involve props though.
Pardon?
They all involve props.
Yeah, hoop and pole dancing.
Yeah.
Which I suppose must have run at roughly the same time you were learning tango.
Oh, pole. I've only been doing the last year and a bit.
Okay, so that's.
I think I started that the previous October, so a year and a half ish. Hoop. I started getting proper classes after I started tango, about a year into tango, but I'd been playing around with it and learning off of YouTube. For since about 2012, I think 2012, 2013. But that's kind of an odd one because it's quite hard to learn if you don't have the feedback from other people and the community spirits. So yeah, no, pole's very, very recent in comparison to everything else.
In that case, then, have you found that your tango has changed since you've started doing the pole stuff?
Not massively, because some of the flexibility I already had from the other styles of dancing I did, and I'm not quite good enough at it yet to have the full flexibility, which will increase my range when it comes to tango. But I think I've got to get a bit better before it starts to show properly.
Okay, so you think that eventually it might actually come around to
hopefully
change?
Yeah, I need to be able to advance in pole, because there are moves at the moment I can't quite do because I just get stuck.
Yeah, so again, was one thing, I suppose now that you've been doing tango for nearly 4 years, call it, and you've obviously been to our tango festival a couple of times, and you've seen different dancers coming into Swansea. Have you? Do you watch them and go and compare your own style to them, or what you're doing differently, or when you dance with somebody from outside who you normally dance with, do you find you dance differently within that, or do you still add your sort of elements of hip hop into that?
I think I try and keep hip hop quite separate from tango in most cases, because it's a very different personality, and the movements are a little bit too jagged and don't come across quite how you'd want them to. In cases where I can fusion it, I do, but in most cases I try and restrict it. But there are people, especially Ornella, who when I watch them and see their range and their poise and their passion, I find that quite inspiring, and I would like to be able to one day be able to compete with that in terms of how I feel about myself, but I think I've got a way to go.
Yes, and then again, I suppose you've already come quite a long way. So you've been one of our assistant teachers for when did we do that? Was that last year? It must have been around this time last year.
I think it was around this time last year.
Yeah, it was as a point we were grown as a club then, and we were thinking that we really need to have sort of expand out. Also, we were starting to see other clubs that were, I wouldn't say struggling, but you get the sense that when the main teachers leave, they sort of leave this sort of vacuum, which then has to be filled by somebody who has no experience really teaching dance or anything like that, and basically just causes problems for a while anyway, until they find their feet and you go. And sometimes they may never find their feet, and it's also particularly since we want to just encourage people to dance and bring them on, where we think that bringing people on to teach is a way of them improving ourselves. So I think you and Tara, we got to a point where we were thinking, we've taught you not everything we knew, but pretty much enough that you could probably have continued learning without us if you so wished, by doing the same sort of thing that me and Alison started doing, which was watching lots of people on YouTube trying to figure stuff out, understanding the technical elements of stuff. So we took you on as like sort of assistant teachers, and I think it was around June time, both of you started teaching classes either with myself or Alison, and then we let you loose together around July, August time, I think it must have been. And then another reason why we brought you on as assistant teachers is because me and Alison actually wanted to go on holiday, because we were always making sure we were back in time for our Monday classes. So we could only ever go away for sort of weekends or after our Monday evening until the Sunday. So I think the first time you taught by both you and Tara taught by yourself must have been around 29th of September last year. or it might have been the week before that. It was because we were teaching up in York.
Yeah.
It was definitely September because it was the actually might have been the week before that. Might have been back from the 29th. So how did you find, does you obviously taught in the Dance Society as the beginner's hip hop teacher, how did you find actually teaching in the tango compared to that?
It was a different style, but I found it quite a bit more relaxed, and I just found it quite nice to do. And obviously, because you guys are quite free with me and Tara, whenever you allow us to dance with others, you enable us to assist or critique other people to a degree where they feel comfortable. And I think that kind of built up my confidence enough to do the class. So I felt rather happy just doing it. And I get quite a lot of enjoyment out of seeing people progress and out of seeing them improve. So I find it rather rewarding, and I just really enjoyed it. I might be a little bit full on for some people, but I hope
our class is being full on for people. I know, go on. Like last night, I was given a GCSE physics lesson on how balance works. Go on, I think our classes are full on, but it's because we're always trying to push people to that point where they actually are learning. And some people won't like the style of teaching. Yeah. Some people will really like it. Some people will appreciate it and understand what's going on. They may not enjoy it, but at least they can appreciate it, which I suppose is always a good thing. But it's other people, especially when I suppose this is one thing that we noticed when we came out of the university setting, because obviously both myself and Alison work for the university. You were a student and now work for the university as well. You're in a university bubble where everybody wants to learn, and there's always this sort of freedom expression thing. When you start getting out into I'm going to call it the real world, for lack of a better word, people like familiarity. So if they have done tango before and suddenly you start teaching it in a totally different style, even though it may be, or your teaching method may be vastly superior, they still won't be able to cope with that sort of sudden change in teaching. So there's always going to be that sort of side of things to overcome.
It's just down to taste, yeah. It's just what people prefer. It's just how they like to learn, and everyone's got a preference. But I think the way I teach when I'm teaching academic-based stuff or outreach with kids, I think that comes across as well.
We should probably say this point out that Sarah, like myself, is a postdoc at Swansea Uni, having just completed her MD, which is an engineering doctorate. I'm not allowed to be negative about it here, but now, as part of that, she has to do a certain amount of teaching within the university. She's also involved in the outreach part, and because she got the engineering doctorate, she has an engineering background, which obviously is incredibly similar to a scientific background as well. So this, I suppose, that must also come across in your teaching. I suppose you think very similarly to myself, where you break stuff down into its components too. So I suppose I suppose actually when you saw my sort of style of teaching compared to other teaching styles, did you? I suppose you might have some sort of appreciation of what I'm trying to do with the science and stuff.
Yeah, it's closer to how I think, and therefore it's something I can relate to a lot easier, which is why I found it a lot easier to learn than I have from other teachers in the past. It's just something that comes naturally to me, and I do think in terms of force, in terms of momentum, in terms of centre of gravity. It's something that crosses my head all the time. Whenever I see an object, I'll think of where it's being positioned from, no matter what the object is. It's just something I tend to bring across, whether I'm doing this or pole or hoop, especially hoop actually, and climbing. All of those things involve us an understanding of physics principles, and they can really help, I find, when you're learning these things, if that's how your mind works.
Yeah, well, I suppose for me in particular, I don't like things that are sort of washy, I suppose, wishy-washy. There's just like things like it. People say, "Oh, you need to learn to keep your axis." Well, what the heck does that mean? Oh, you need to keep your balance. Well, how do you do that? Oh, you just learn it over time. No, really?
Yeah.
It's like, so again, I suppose that sort of non really actually definite answer sort of annoys you as well. It's almost sort of people trying to skirt around the actual
Well,
main
it
reason
helps,
for it.
it helps some people, but for someone who sees in 3D and can understand where everything's supposed to be, if you don't have the correct answer, sometimes it can be quite hard, because knowing when you're in posture, where your force comes from, where the weight's supposed to be coming from, knowing that the chest is going forward, all of those little things, when it gets put together, allows you to fall perfectly into place, as if you're putting a jigsaw together, rather than thinking, that looks about right.
Yeah. Well, sometimes it looks about right does work. Because if it looks about right, it probably has worked. You can then break it back down to explain why it's worked.
Yeah.
And it's then looking at times of then you can sort of analyze why it's worked. Is that because you've done something which is outside the technique of tango? So I'm going to say technically cheating, but if something works for you, then is that technically wrong? It says, it's an interesting thing. So it's okay.
Sorry, it's everyone's way of interpreting it and how it enables them to get into the right position.
Yeah, because again, we're not in tango. We're not going to be examined at any real point. So you're not going to go and sit an exam like you would in ballroom. Very few people do the competition thing in Argentine tango. So, providing it feels good and it allows you to dance and do what you want to, then is it really that? Is it anything wrong with it? Probably not.
No, it's quite personal as well. You've just got to feel happy in yourself. But the other reason it's useful is because if you do go in the wrong posture, and to a particularly bad extent, you can cause damage to you or others. So it's always good, just for a health and safety point of view, to consider things, really.
Yeah. Is there anything that I suppose this is going to be an interesting thing for me, in particular, as the main sort of organizer of the club. Is there anything that you actually sort of want to bring to the teaching of tango?
Nah. You know how dark a hole you're getting yourself in for now. Well, as Chris is painfully aware, I like lifts. I like things which are stretchy, and I like things which involve a lot of balance. So anything a bit more exotic, which involves more complex lifts or more complex positions, anything that requires a bit more flexibility, I would like to attempt, or maybe even doing stretching throughout the class, or adding it to my delightful stretching class at the end, which can actually enable people to start to get more into those positions. So when you're doing belay or things like that, just being able to get the posture a bit easier without forcing yourself into it.
Okay, so it's still within the actual realms of tango, rather than starting to sort of push towards more sort of general fusion side, of trying to fusion hip hop or any of those sort of techniques into it.
I would like to have a fusion class, but I think it's something that we could do as a bit of fun, separate, rather than fusion it into actual tango, because I think they have their place, but it's not always good to have you there continuously. But in terms of the actual tango class, it'd just be nice to push ourselves a little bit further again.
Bear in mind, our classes are probably in Britain are the tango classes that push the boundaries of tango to its max anyway. I don't think there's many other classes that sort of cover the range of topics that we do, and to the level that we do it in, or I don't think many other tango classes cover things like the sort of enganche stuffs, the extreme volcadory type stuff that we sometimes add. It was not even extreme as an extreme, but like trying to take a volcado and see where you can take it. So making it extreme by adding ganchos into the middle of it, or even bits where the leader is actually rotating underneath the follower, which is unusual, and not many people see it done, or even sort of just copying other sort of fringe movements in tango, like catching the follower's heel and doing your calcitas as well. Yeah. So I suppose that's the one thing we come across is this is coming back to my previous interview, which was with Wayne Rosio of Tango FSS, where we started talking about bringing younger people into tango. Obviously, Sarah is mid to late 20s now, so not the really young side of where dance classes are going, but in comparative to the usual generations that you would see dancing tango. So what would you see as a way of, well, first of all, what's your sort of like experience of like the range of people dancing in our classes? Obviously, our teaching team is fairly young with you, Tara, myself and Alison. As I say, our average teaching age is less than 30, which is something you don't normally see. And then the actual people who come to our class range from, that has got the full range of tango, so early 20s up to 80s, even though we're sort of, I suppose, are we close? It's difficult to actually work out because we've got different people who come to different classes each week, so it's really difficult to know what
average age changes every week by quite a lot.
Yeah, so we don't actually know but if you tend to go to them longer, you normally see people in their 50s, 60s dancing. So how do you feel when you have to when dancing with people or going to events with the general older of the population?
I don't really think age is the factor. I think when it comes to tango, you're dancing as old as you are in your head, really. So if you want to be fun, you want to be expressive, you really want to be creative, it doesn't matter how old you are, people will still do it. And then you have younger people who just want to walk because they don't have the confidence to do much more. So I have no qualms with it. I'll dance anything, really. The more creative they are, the more I'm going to enjoy it. So,
yeah, so that's a really good point. Is one of the points of Wayne sort of thing, and I don't know if this is just how people perceive sort of the younger people in tango, that they don't want to dance with older people. That's when he was talking about the Reading University Tango Festival, that they said it then good because they potentially didn't want to dance with older people. I don't know if that's actually any fact that people actually said that, or whether it's just a perceived thing. But for me, I don't mind dancing with people from any age, providing they are there to have fun. So you can dance with people in their 60s or 70s who want to have fun with it and just want to dance. And I don't really mind if they're in their 20s all the way up to their 70s. What I find really uncomfortable in tango is the people who just want to dance to have a hug, or that sort of zen outside type of thing.
That's not a matter of age. That is just how you feel, and some people might really enjoy it. Personally, if you want to squish me and tell me exactly how I'm supposed to dance and tell me that I'm doing it wrong if I don't do how you think, that's the only thing that's going to put me off, nothing else.
Yeah, so similar sort of route to what we think. That's probably, again, why you've kept with our classes for so long. So I suppose one of the other things we sort of, as myself, I'm always interested in the fusion sort of ideas of mixing dance styles together. So we're coming back to this sort of idea. Is there anything that you are thinking of going into in dance other than sort of tango? Doesn't have to be fusion, but any other things that you've got, actually like to try that in dance?
Obviously, I always want the opportunity to merge more hip-hop styles with tango out of curiosity and creativity. But apart from that, not at the moment, but I probably will in the future. I mean, less of merging tango or something, merging a different thing with bits of tango. There are certain pole-based routines with Tango Fusion, which I would like to try, but I'm not exactly going to force this class to attempt such things. So my poor pole class may have me groveling at some point to attempt some weird things.
Okay, that's always interesting to know that it's actually instead of using tango as a base, it's something else as a base with elements of tango in it. Yeah. So is there any other sort of partner dancing that you'd actually want to go into yet, or go do? Because you've obviously done Latin ballroom stuff. You've come to a couple of modern jive events, but
yeah, I do quite enjoy that, and I have enjoyed salsa and Zumba in the past. I think it's partly a case of time and adding more things to the list of stuff I already do. At one point, I probably will come back. I mean, I've still got another 5 tickets for the Kazumba class I signed up to, which thank God they told me I can use at any point in time. Eventually will come back. It just requires me having spare time because I'm quite good at accumulating hobbies. So as well as hoop, pole, I also occasionally go kayaking. I occasionally do climbing. I now have a mini trampoline I come up with things for. I have my own mini gym downstairs. I tend to keep myself occupied and go hiking where I can. So it's trying not to make that list so long that I'm a partial jack of all trades and don't actually stick to anything.
Yeah, I suppose there's always time for when you retire to add even more trades.
Retire? What are these two things?
I don't know. It all depends, doesn't it? Just win the lottery and then.
Yeah, right.
That's one thing I've always thought quite interesting as like a club. Like, obviously, there's groups out there that have been going for a long time, and as I say, it's generally an older generation that dance tango and have been setting up their clubs. So they are of that sort of age. So the obviously one was Sean and Mike in Cardiff have been going for 20 years. If we've been going for 20 years, that would be 2036, and I don't think I'd be 50 at that point. So there's still lots of time to actually sort of explain on that sort of stuff. So in potential, I could be Urban Tango Nights under the disguise of me ass and running it, and who knows where I'll be in that sort of time. Could be running for 40 years, and that's another reason why we're trying to bring on the teachers, is just in case something does happen to myself and Alison can't run the club anymore. There's always people to take it over. So it's no pressure on you if that ever happens. But
yeah, you ain't going anywhere for a while.
No. Well, I think one thing we are going to have to look at over the next couple of years at least is trying to work out how to bring on more teachers and just try and vary it up as well, just as. Because so far we haven't given, and we probably won't give you. We haven't given you any of the admin stuff of these club to really deal with outside events, which, to be honest, you're probably quite thankful of.
I can help when needed.
Yeah, when needed, but it's obviously like things like our newsletter, setting up events. We do all that. Or myself and Alison do all that. Mm-hmm. But yeah, it's. Hopefully, we'll keep as a club. We'll keep building and offering more and more things. I'd be quite interested in hip hop, in the sort of actually trying to do some more fusion-y type stuff.
Yeah.
We know we've had some calls to do some more like sort of performance style things as well. So that might be an element that can be brought into that sort of thing. So who knows? We'll see what it is. Anyway, that's probably a good place to finish today's interview. So thank you, Sarah, for joining me tonight.
Thank you, Chris.
You have got an Instagram, which I'll put a link to below. Obviously, Sarah's part of Urban Tango Nights, so links to our Facebook page, website, and on our website you'll be able to find subscribe boxes to subscribe to our weekly newsletter, so do that. We Urban Tango Nights have our own Instagram, Twitter. There's a GoFundMe page link in below for this COVID-19 times. We've mentioned the dreaded COVID-19 in the interview at last. So anyway, thank you, Sarah, for joining us tonight, and hopefully when we get back to teaching our normal classes, you'll be able to do more teaching there as well.